What great energy in this room this morning. My goodness, y'all are doing something right. I'm excited to be here, and I want to first say to you, congratulations, because you work for a company that cares about you. And it's evident that they care about you because they have asked you all to come together today to be with each other, to celebrate the work that you're doing. And it is a beautiful, beautiful thing that many companies today have really cut out of their budgets and their intentions. And so can we just take a moment and just celebrate how great this is? Yeah. Yeah. And over the next hour-ish, I'm going to attempt to inspire you to care about you as much as BAM cares about you. Because they've asked me today to come in and talk about the topic of burnout. And so I want you to receive this topic with the idea that maybe it's not something that you've ever experienced, and I hope that's true for you. But if it is, I'm going to give you some things that'll help you get out of it, help you ban it for the future, and most importantly, I think for this company, is that you can look around at each other and help each other ban burnout by the way that you live and work together. So, in order to do that, I want to connect this not just to burnout, but I want to ban burnout, build community, and help you boost your life and career. Sound like a plan? All right, let's do that. First, I want to give you a really simple framework that based on the way that the formatting happened, that E just like needed a break. So it's resting down there at the bottom, so it's fine. This format I created when I started my business 7 years ago to illustrate how different the needs of the company and the needs of our humanness are. Because the business needs to control, measure, and optimize. I'm guessing you have goals, metrics, systems, processes, things that are important for you to run this business. Fair? As a business consultant, I would say yes, keep doing that. But our human needs are very, very, very different. They are personal, emotional, and social. And the best companies know how to meet the company needs as well as the human needs and bring those together in a beautiful, beautiful way. In fact, what the company wants and what you want are the same. What we all want is to thrive, to grow, prosper, and flourish. And actually, thriving is a very natural phenomenon. We're wired for it. It's the way God intended. It's the way our nervous system is set up for us. But unfortunately, things have gone awry. So even though our brain has one job, every day when we wake up, our brain wants to make sure we survive and thrive. We're hardwired for it. Unfortunately, we've gotten off track with something that sounds a lot like thriving, but is very, very different. And that's called striving. Did you know that the word strive comes from the word strife, and it means battle, conflict, to be in quarrel, to be in competition? And doesn't life feel like that sometimes? I was able to get here in time to hear some of the Q&A and some of the breakout introductions, and one of the gentlemen said, "Oh my gosh, I've only been here a short time, but I've never experienced anything like this. I came from a corporate job that was very competitive." Where's the gentleman who shared that earlier? So you have experienced strife, it sounds like, in your previous positions, and you're enjoying the fact that things are different here at BAM Company, right? That's why I knew it was going to be a great conversation, because you all do care about living and working well together. But unfortunately, from a societal situation and expectations, striving has become the norm, and it's the direct path to burnout. And so what I'm going to do today in this next hour is we're going to go to burnout school. We're going to do some English, some history, some science, some physiology, some neuroscience, some religion, and some business class in an hour. And it'll be the best class you've ever taken. I'm setting the expectations right now. Can we all just be with me in that? Excellent. Excellent. Well, in order to move away from something, it's important to define it so we can all be on the same page. So I'm going to give you the definition of burnout. Because if I were to walk around and ask each one of you what burnout is, you would all have a very personal, emotional, and specific definition. But we're going to gather around this definition that came from the very first report that was done on burnout. Here it is. It's a state of fatigue or frustration brought about by devotion to a cause, a way of life, or a relationship that failed to produce the expected reward. It's important for us to look at this definition collectively so we can flip the script on this story and not do this. So we're going to use this as a baseline of what not to do, and then I'm going to build some context around how did we get here and what should we do to prevent it. So over the next hour, I am going to share with you how did we get to this place that striving is commonplace? What's the history? I'm going to share with you how to flip the script on this story, and I'm going to give you two very practical, tactical takeaways that you can start doing tomorrow to ensure that you ban burnout for you and everyone that you work with. Fair? All right, let's start with the history. If this is the definition of burnout, what year do you think this first study on burnout came out? I'm going to give you a hint. I looked like this. Turn to your partner and make a guess. What year do you think the very first report on burnout came into the world? Turn to your partner, take a guess. Ready, go. That's that year. Okay, let's hear some guesses. 1975, who else? I heard 80. Girl, I graduated high school in 84. What? 53. How old do you think I am? And you looked really nice, and now I'm questioning it. Let's just move along, shall we? Formatting is a really interesting thing as a keynote speaker. 1974. The award goes to 1974. Herbert Friedenberger, a German-American psychologist, was sitting around with his buddies one day just talking about work, and they were feeling some kind of way. Not really feeling like things were going like they wanted it to go. And one of them said, I don't know. I just feel kind of burned out. And Herbert, being the good psychologist that he is, said, I wonder if other people feel this way, if we feel this way. So he conducted the very first study on burnout. And he discovered that very much people were feeling some kind of way. And he put together the first report and the progression of burnout, how it starts and how you end up with burnout that I'm going to show you in a bit. But what I think is interesting is I didn't learn about burnout until the World Health Organization published their report in 2019. They came out and said burnout is an occupational phenomenon characterized by three things: exhaustion, that a nap and more sleep won't help; cynicism, just starting to feel like, does any of this stuff even really matter? And no more suck it up left to give. I just don't want to try harder. I'm kind of checked out. Well, in 2019, when this came out, you couldn't open a business book or magazine or LinkedIn without seeing everyone talking about burnout. The difference between Herbert Friedenberger and the World Health Organization is Herbert didn't have Google, right? He had to actually print pages and take it by Pony Express or something to take his report around. And so in 2019, collectively, it was like this Me Too movement. People read the report and went, dude, I thought it was just me. And all of a sudden, everybody started talking about, I'm burned out, I'm burned out, I'm burned out. And so I share that with you to say this isn't new. This didn't just actually happen. It's been going on for decades. And so I'm going to start to build you a bit of a timeline here in terms of what is happening with burnout and when I think it started. So if we start with today, 2023, and we say, okay, 1974 was the first time that we heard about it. 2019 was when the World Health Organization started talking about it. I believe, based on my research, that it goes way back to the 1900s. And I want to build this timeline for you because I want you to see how long these aspects of burnout have been around, that they've become almost the way we see the world, naturally. And so in order to change that, we're going to have to become really aware of the things that cause burnout, how long it's been around, so that we can collectively flip the script on that story and make some changes. So I believe that burnout happened in the 1900s. Back in the agricultural society, when it was a farming community, everybody worked together. In fact, farms were created as a shared food source so that you didn't have to work so hard individually. It was about being in community. And the purpose was to survive. And in the farming community, you were outside in nature, you were moving your bodies, you had a strong sense of faith because the weather or critters or something could take you out at any time, so you spent a lot of time praying to make sure that didn't happen. And everybody knew their part in society. Some people were growing the crops, some were taking care of the animals, some were growing herbs for medicine, some worked at the store, some were the pastors, the teachers, but you knew how your part of the work mattered to other humans. And the industrialists came along and they said, hey, I've got an idea. Why don't you come in out of the elements? Why don't you come in out of the uncertainty of whether it's going to work out or not, and I'm going to pay you on a regular basis, and you're going to make a whole lot more money. And that was the expected reward. And you know what? It worked. It worked. Except for there were some unintentional consequences that happened in that shift. We no longer had a sense of how our work really mattered to other humans. You could come in every day and do your part of the job and really not have any understanding of how it was impacting others or the greater good of society. You weren't working for others, you were working for a paycheck. You were no longer moving around so much, you weren't out in nature so much. A lot of our basic human needs were neglected unintentionally. And so we made this huge shift that we were no longer working for purpose, we were working for a paycheck. We were no longer really working in community. Things became very independent. Not so much time outside. Not so much time moving around. We lost our sense of a faith and a reliance on so many things that were out of our control because we believed that we could control everything. It was no longer about this internal motivation to show up and serve. It was about, who am I working for? And so the name of the game in the industrial age became prove yourself and work harder so that you could make more money, so that you could get promoted, so that you could please someone else, but not really know how it worked in the bigger picture. Well, lo and behold, when Herbert Friedenberger announced his report on burnout, the root cause is proving yourself and working harder to the point that you're neglecting your own needs, personal, emotional, and social. And so it gets worse from there, ultimately ending up in what is called burnout syndrome. So take a look at that wheel and just ask yourself, have you been in any stages of this? Maybe not at this company, but maybe previously, as we said. And I want you to understand the phases of burnout because it's very different for everyone. As the definition states, a frustration or a fatigue. In burnout, some people shut down and some people get angry and bitter. It looks very different in everyone. But as a good business consultant, having worked for decades helping businesses and people get better results, I always go to root cause. I'm like, okay, if we can take care of the first couple, we don't have to worry about the rest of this because it all looks pretty dark. And so I went to, okay, how can we make sure that we move away from just proving ourselves and working harder and ultimately neglecting our own needs? Now, I don't know about you, but when I looked at those first two, prove yourself and work harder, that's what I was told success is. Weren't you? From the beginning. I grew up on a small farm in southeast Indiana. My grandfather was a plumber. We lived and worked on the farm. We didn't talk about personal, emotional, and social. We didn't talk about our feelings. Get your butt to work. And so then we took that and we took it to school. And we said, go to school and prove yourself. Show up. Work harder. Perfect attendance. Did you know there's zero correlation between good grades and attendance to ultimate success? But parenting is so difficult and so uncertain, we got nothing else to bank it on, so we just say, go to school every day and get good grades. I don't know if it's going to work out, but that's the only thing I got to measure, right? And then we said, okay, well, if school is the answer, then we should probably have more school. And then we starved out the trades industry because everything had to be prove yourself and work harder, moving further and further away from our human needs of really knowing who we are. So I'm here to tell you that proving yourself and working harder is striving, and it's the opposite. It's what keeps us from thriving. And so you may be saying, well, great. I've been told this my whole dang life, and now you're telling me it's wrong? I'm going to show you today how to move out of the battle. Move out of the external validation of who you are. I'm not saying I don't want you to work hard, but I want the motivation to come from a different place. I want the motivation to come from you knowing who you are and showing up to serve your colleagues in community. It's a very subtle but significant shift. And I want us to understand our needs of personal, emotional, and social so we can be really, really specific about how to meet those. Let me give you an example of how this typically plays out. Because what's happened is we have begun to believe that we, as humans, need to control, measure, and optimize everything in our lives in order to be successful. Here's how it looks in the everyday, and one example from my life. I'm a runner, and it's not uncommon for me to go out and run with friends. It's also not uncommon to get a mile or two out and have that friend stop in the middle of the street and just lose their minds. And they're looking at their tracking device and saying, now it doesn't count. Which means what? They forgot to hit start when we took off for the run. We ran a mile or so, and now they're freaking out because that 1 mile didn't count. And those of you laughing are the ones that's happened to. That used to be me, and now I can have a little fun with it. And I go, well, hold on. I think my dopamine levels are up. I think we've had good conversation. And they're like, you don't understand. I said I was going to run 15 this week. If I don't count that mile, I got to get up an extra hour on Saturday. We have soccer on Saturday. That means I'm going to... And they just go. Because we have begun to believe that if we can't control it and measure it, it simply doesn't count. And we've lost this ability just to connect heartbeat to heartbeat, eyeball to eyeball, because we're humans and because we care about one another. And so we're going to have to flip the script on that story. But what's going to make that difficult is that our brains work off of patterns. And so because we were told that prove yourself and work harder was this moniker of success, we've got decades of this pattern that's playing out in all of our lives. And so in order to change it, we're going to have to create new patterns for ourselves and no longer believe that striving and proving ourselves is the gold star, but instead it's the problem. So now what do we do? Well, now what we do is instead of proving ourselves, we're going to know ourselves. Intense self-awareness. so that we can create the conditions to thrive, to grow, prosper, and flourish. The word flourish comes from floral origins. It means when the stem of a flower reaches up towards the sun and its roots down through the soil. We're just big, intricate houseplants. And so we have to create the conditions for ourselves in order to thrive. Because you are not a machine here to produce. You are a beautiful human here to add value, be relevant, and make an impact. And so as a result of our time together today, I want you to start to trust you. I want you to know that you already have right here, right now, in this moment, everything you need to thrive. You don't need another certification. You don't need to go get a degree. You don't need a promotion. You don't need granite countertops. You don't need a husband. You don't need a dog. You don't need well, a dog might be a good idea. You don't need anything else in order to thrive. You're already set up for it. But we have to learn to trust our own internal guidance, what I call our internal Thrive Guide. Those of you who love the Bible might call it the Holy Spirit within you. You already have guidance. You don't need your boss to give you a great performance review to know you're great. You don't need to be validated by something other than how you feel and what you want and your ability and desire to go serve these beautiful people that exist here in this company. Our work and our lives are an act of service. But in order to do that, I'm going to show you this model that's typically used in psychology, anything that's requiring behavior change. Because the scripting that we have that goes all the way back to 1900 to today runs deep, deep, deep in the patterns of our brain and expectations. And so if we're going to change that, we have to be really intentional about how we change that. Changing our behavior is not as easy as it sounds. In fact, 80% of your life is just running on autopilot in your subconscious. We think we're really smart and we're planning and doing things, but really only 20% of our lives are about what we decide to do. Everything else is just on autopilot. So if we're going to change this, I want to give you some of these models so you know what you're up for to make the change. This model is called the drama triangle. And what it depicts is that many times we end up unintentionally living our lives as a victim to these external circumstances. The prove yourself. I got to make sure the boss is okay with me, my family's okay with me, the teacher or the coach is okay with me, that all the answers are outside. And when we believe that the answers are outside somewhere and not in here, then we set ourselves up to either need a villain, somebody to blame when our life doesn't go like we want it to go, or we want somebody to come in and rescue and fix us. And when we live in this pattern, it's actually a pattern of decline. And as adults, what we end up doing is we end up either becoming the villain or becoming the rescuer and the fixer. And for most of us professionals, the rescuer fixer place shows up as parents. We want our kids to have a better life than we had. And so we start jumping in to help them probably more than we should without letting them figure out how to make mistakes. I came in early enough to hear Adam and Ivan talking about making mistakes has been a key to building this company, and that's how we learn. So if we're going to ban burnout and move out of this external validation of proving ourselves, we have to get really comfortable writing our own story and creating our own life. And when we create our own life, what we need is nurtured and coached, not somebody to come in and fix it for us. Nurturing is for somebody to hold up the mirror and help you see you. And when things don't go well, they're still nurturing and they say, yeah, it was a good effort. I know it sucked. I know it didn't work out like you wanted to, but we're okay. And coaching is looking around and saying, who's doing the things that I want to do in my life and how can I go learn from them? So we got to get out of this external validation and move ourselves up to where we can create our own lives. Because the expected reward can't just be our paycheck and benefits. You get paid twice a month, you go to work every day. Your benefits are preparing for something really bad to happen. Expected reward is how do you want your life to feel? What does it mean to grow, prosper, and flourish for you? Because everybody is going to have a different definition of what a thriving life is. And if we think it's just going to come from a paycheck, I got to tell you something. I know some really rich, miserable people. Don't you? And I know some people with meager means who are just loving life. So our expected reward is, how do we want our lives to feel? But we haven't been trained or given expectations that feelings are supposed to be a part of life, especially at work. But I'm here to tell you that that's exactly how our brains are wired. In fact, if you really want to live a better life that feels better to you and ban burnout, build community, and build this life, you're going to have to get really okay with positive, hopeful, joyful emotions, because that's what our brain needs to change. So let's dig into this, what it means to grow, prosper, and flourish, okay? Grow. This came up when I came in and heard Adam talking about being competitive. We are hardwired for growth. It's the way God intended, that we would always want more for our lives. That's a part of the deal. That's a part of your hard wiring. Unfortunately, every time that we want to grow, it requires our life to change, for us to take a chance. There's some place I want to go, but I've never been there before. I want to be promoted. I want to work in a different department. I want to, whatever it is that you want, we're all different down to our fingerprints. So all of you are going to want something different with your growth. But growth requires us to make changes. Have you ever heard the quote, everything I want is on the other side of fear? Fear isn't actually the right word for most of us. We're not working in jobs that are usually physically dangerous. Some of you are. But in our day-to-day lives, it's not like back in the day when if you walked out of the cave, you were going to get eaten by a tiger. So fear is the appropriate word if we're talking about physical and imminent danger. If there's a tiger in the room or a tornado coming, we should be afraid. What we're feeling when we're talking about growth in today's environment is simply uncertainty. I don't know what's going to happen if I go do that thing. And because we don't have much appetite for anything that's uncertain, it starts to feel scary. And our brain can't just wait until we get there to that growth place. Our brain has to fill in the blanks of the story. And so when we start to think about growth, we start to think about how the story ends. If I want to go do that thing that I want to do, I wonder how it's going to turn out, which is why you can read this, right? But here's the problem. Because of this striving background that we've had, and we don't actually live in caves with tigers, we still have this negativity bias in our patterns. Out of the 12 to 60,000 thoughts we have per day, 80% are on negative and 95% are on repeat. You ever get in that loop? You know when the loop started for me that was really bad? When I was teaching the kids how to drive. And you think, I'm just going to put them out on the road in that huge piece of metal where lots of people could die. And you lay in bed at night and they're out with their friends, and you're like, oh, and you just start getting on that repeat, right? We have this negativity bias that we've got to re-script because we don't have any appetite for uncertainty. We think we're supposed to control everything, and that's just not the truth. Everything we want isn't on the other side of fear. It's on the other side of what I call a sea of uncertainty. So let's picture you're here, and the growth thing that you want is right over there. And in between where you are now and where you want to go is this sea of uncertainty. And it looks dangerous. It looks like I don't know how to cross it. But you have everything you need to thrive. The first person you have a conversation with when you think about where you want to go is you. The voice is in your head. And the first voice that shows up, I call her the little bitch in my head. You can call yours what you want to call it, but I grew up with all boys on the farm, and cursing was a primary love language for us. So when she shows up, she remembers every dumb thing I've done since the picture you saw of me from 1977, actually, or it was a good guess up here at the front table. And so when I'm standing here and I want to grow and I want to go do that thing, she goes, oh, girl, you're not going to try that, are you? Remember that one time you tried that thing and everything went really wrong? And she just knows, she remembers it all. And we all have an inner critic. I recommend you make really good friends with yours because you're going to have it forever. And the inner critic is really meant to keep you safe so you don't jump out of the cave and get eaten by the tiger. But we use it to keep us from doing the thing that we want to do and being the person that we want to be. And so make friends with your inner critic. I have a pattern that I have created to create the conditions to thrive. It goes like this. Hi, thanks for being here. Now, I'm going to need you to get in the passenger seat with a seatbelt and a snack, but you don't get to drive. Put her in her place, acknowledge she's here, and then I move to the next voice in my head, which is the first responder. Think EMT, firefighter. They don't show up on the scene of something that looks tumultuous, like your sea of uncertainty. They don't show up and go, what are you, an idiot? Now, they may think it, but they've been trained not to say it. They show up and they go, are you okay? How can I help you? You can nurture the first responder voice for you. When you want to do something that looks scary, that is a growth opportunity for you, you're going to pause and you're going to say, I'm okay. What do I need? And it may be that you need some goldfish crackers and some apple juice. Maybe you need to sit down and have a snack. Maybe you haven't eaten since yesterday. Maybe you need to go outside and get in the sunlight. Maybe you need some help or you need some data. But you know how to go get what you need to cross that sea of uncertainty. I promise you, you've overcome a lot of things in your life already at this point. But you speaking to you is how you get the growth that you want in your life. This is all about patterns. You can create a new pattern that doesn't require you to go outside of yourself to solve all the problems. The most important story that we tell is the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves. It's why the Bible talks of fear over 500 times to equip you with all of the things you're going to need to grow and do the thing that you want to do. So there's growth. You're going to have to manage your growth through your own voice, getting through the uncertainty. Let's go to prosperity. What is prosperity? So I told you it's not just about a paycheck. The word prosper actually means doing well. It is about financial prosperity, but it's also about physical wellness and emotional wellness and how we feel about our lives. Look at all the synonyms about prospering. So how do you want your life to feel? Have you thought about it? I did a survey on LinkedIn when I wrote my book, and I asked 200 professionals to describe a thriving, flourishing life. Were they having one? Was it possible? And do you know that people wrote in the comments, this is hard. I've never thought about it. I should think about it. Wow. So I want you to just take a couple of minutes, and I want you to turn to the person next to you that looks fairly safe to have this conversation with. You all look pretty friendly and happy this morning. What are 3 words that you could use to describe the life that you want to have? Just 3 words to describe a life that is well lived for you. It could be courageous. It could be calm. It could be whatever it is for you. 3 words. Come up with those this morning and share them with your partner. Ready to go? Okay, let's hear from some of you. Who would be willing to share the words you want to describe your thriving life?
Good. Okay.
Or you can share your partner's words for their thriving life. What's your name? Tiffany. What are the words that you want to describe your life?
Oh, thank you.
Tiffany's like, oh, I don't know if you should give me this.
Well, for those of you that don't know, I am a breast cancer survivor. I'm coming up. Coming up actually on my, I guess, year anniversary when I had the mammogram that caught it. So I want to be healthy.
Amen.
I'm in the fight of my life. I'm feeling good today. And I just want to say my BAM fam has a lot to do with that. Like, y'all for real, like for real.
Yes. Yes.
And then I want to be happy, so I want to do things to celebrate my life, to celebrate thriving and surviving. And then I want to have joy, so that's what I want.
Amen. I love that. I love that. We have to decide the life we want, y'all. Too many of us are saying, well, when I get caught up, I'll go have a great life. You're never getting caught up in the history of the world. It's not going to happen. Somebody is always sending you email or creating laundry. Like, it's not a thing. So we have to decide and then live that life out. Who else? Let's give somebody else a chance. Back here, up here. You're in charge, Jace.
Okay, my three are happy, healthy, and wealthy.
Awesome. What's your name, by the way, in case people don't know? Does everybody know everybody here in the room? Kylie. Happy, healthy, and wealthy. I love that. Again, set the intentions, because then you have to say to yourself, well, what do I need to do every day in order to be happy, healthy, and wealthy? You don't just wake up one day and go, surprise, bank account's full, feeling good. If somebody else has figured out that plan, let me know. Who else?
So I want to be needed, I want to know joy, and I want to have peace.
Needed, joy, and peace. What's your name?
Shelly.
Shelly. I love that. Round of applause for Shelly, and then I want to talk a little bit about that. Being needed, I'm gonna describe it as valued, is when you know how you matter in the community of this company. Company is a community, and when you show up and you know how to bring your gifts and talents and serve and help one another, whew, that's what we're wired for, to feel good. Let's do one more. Who else?
Bridget?
What's your name?
Bridget.
Hi, Bridget.
Hi. So I actually wrote spiritually driven, selflessness and happiness.
Spiritually driven, selflessness, and happiness. Yep, round of applause. Thank you. And so now that you've stated that's how you want to feel and how your life to be, again, now then you have to ask yourself, you look at that and you go, okay, how do I wake up every day and do the things that will get me that life? Because if we're just waiting on the next promotion or the next raise or the next whatever outside of ourselves to have a great life, you're just reinforcing striving. We got to go inside to think about thriving. And positive, hopeful, joy-filled stories are necessary for us to make the changes that we need. Neuroscience. This isn't just my opinion. This is the science. In fact, there was a study done. It was a group of cardiologists, and it was called Change or Die. And they were working with these heart patients that were told if they didn't change their behavior, food, exercise, they were going to die. Interestingly enough, very few of them made the changes. So fear of death, the negativity bias, is not a strong motivator of a change in behavior. The thing that was present, two things that were present in those that did change their behavior, the first one was they had a story of a life that they wanted to live for. It was things like, I want to walk my daughter down the aisle. I want to see my grandkids grow up. They had something that was so full of hope and joy and expectation, expected reward, that it was worth changing their behavior of diet and exercise so that they could get to that life. So the negativity bias is not going to give us the life that we want. We need to decide how we want our life to feel. Again, because we're talking about patterns. So we need to flip the script on the story from one of, I'm just afraid bad things are going to happen and I need somebody else to fix it and save it, or somebody else to blame, into one where we decide what our story is so that we can be motivated to change, advance, and grow. So, we're going to go from proving ourselves and working harder, we're going to go to knowing ourselves and creating the conditions to thrive. So what if you choose a devotion, going back to the definition of burnout, what if you choose a devotion to a thriving way of life with the expected reward to grow, prosper, and flourish in your life and career? This is important because the word devotion means love, loyalty, and enthusiasm for your life. And if we look at the definition of burnout, what Herbert Friedenberger described as the very fundamental root cause of burnout was an obsessive need to perform, achieve, or care. This is the part that gets me. It tends to affect the conscientious people who show enthusiasm and accept responsibility. Y'all, burnout doesn't come after the slackers. Burnout comes after us. Burnout comes after those that we care. We care so much that we want everything to work out. So if we can turn that love and devotion and care that we have for life into creating the life that we want for ourselves, not to be validated by something outside of ourselves, then we can show up for work and give our very best to it. But we have to decide what it is for us. So I want to help you work on that self-awareness piece so that you can really know yourself. So in your work, the job that you have right now, what do you love to do that you're really good at? Either jot a few things down or just think about it for a second. What do you love to do that you're really good at? And then turn the other way to a different partner and share a little bit about what are those things in your job right now that you love to do that you're good at. Ready, go. God bless.
Thank you.
1 more minute.
Boy, I tell you, it's scary as a great time. My kids, the entire first year, I picked up my maybe what seemed like 40 hours of sleep. Because those complications with birth and health problems. My second boy, which is now the size of a tank.
Okay, let's have you share. Jace is going to come around and capture some of your, what do you love to do that you're good at? Who's ready to share? We go back there. And please say your name.
Yeah, I'm Wayne, a maintenance technician.
Hi,
but
Wayne.
Best thing about being a maintenance technician, you do love the feedback from people when you repair something that they're upset about. It makes them all happy and they get all, all gushy about it. And
Yes.
you call, give you a good rapport and all that.
Yes. Amen. Amen. And that's the point. When we can show up every day and know that whatever you fixed made their life better, that's living with purpose, not just a paycheck. That's living in community, personal, emotional, and social. As I said, my grandfather was a plumber, and everybody in the family at some point worked for the business doing something. And one time, I charged somebody double time because he went out to fix something on Christmas Day. Y'all, my grandfather has never been more mad at me. And I don't think he's ever been mad at me except that one time. And he screamed at me. I was shocked. And he said, when people need you, it don't matter what day it is, you show up. If you ever do that again, he didn't say you're fired, because who else was going to do the books if I didn't show up? But he was cranky mad. What he did every day was show up to make people's lives better. That's the deal. I love that. Who else? What do you love to do that you're good at? Back here? Jace?
Don't strain yourself.
We need your voice for the 2 days, though, so we'll save it.
My name's Catherine. I enjoy talking to people, connecting, learning about their background, their lives, and just, connecting. I'm going to repeat. So
What
I'm
is
gonna
your
cut
role in
myself
the
off.
company?
I'm sorry. I am an assistant property manager.
Okay, so the value that you provide, being on property and getting to know residents, getting to know colleagues, and being able to really understand what's going on in their life is a big part of what you provide in your work, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. So while, there are things that are not convenient or easy sometimes for our work, we do it because we're serving with a purpose. Let's do a few more. Who else? Getting Jay some cardio today.
There you go.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm the marketing manager. I love to create. And I love to create twofolds. I love to create anything that is artistic, but I also love to create safe spaces for people because that was rarely given to me as an adult. So getting to lead my team here means a lot because I want to create a safe space for others. So.
Ooh, yes. I love that. The number one need that we have as humans is to feel safe. So you are providing a huge service. You happen to be doing it through marketing, and your role touches every aspect of the company. And so I'm guessing that as you're creating the story for BAM, you're also making sure that anybody feels safe understanding what this company is about. Is that valuable to you as an organization? Yes. Yes. Who we are, unique down to our fingerprints, even the experiences as a child that were not your preferred way to grow up, I'm sure, have now shaped you in a way that you can provide something of value because of that experience that you've overcome. Y'all, that's living with purpose. That's humanity. Let's do one more because it's super fun.
Can we do two?
Yes.
We'll do Jason and Missy.
Kind of going back to Wayne's point with making the residents happy, it's nice to take in new information and pass it on and see other people succeed from the advice that you've given them.
Ooh, I love that. I love it. So teaching people so everybody can grow and rise. Yes. Round of applause. Love. Love. One more.
I'm Missy Patel. I'm at Greenfield Crossing, property manager. And I would have to say, putting a roof over that new person's head is really rewarding. You don't know their background till you sit and talk. And I think also being a good listener, being compassionate, being able to prioritize. You have to have that in what we do every single day. But putting a roof over someone's head, that's so rewarding.
And it's at a time of just a lot of stress and uncertainty for that person. And your ability to prioritize and let them know here's what's going to happen next, and really listening and making them feel safe, contributes to the story that you're leaving for this organization. Not just that they got a roof over their head, but that you cared enough to sit and make sure that they had everything worked out. That's beautiful. Let's give a round of applause for that one.
Thanks, Missy.
Now, I love this because you alluded to it. All of our life matters, whether it's the things that we've overcome or the really joyful things that we've done in our lives. So I want to ask you this one. What was 14-year-old you doing for fun? Now, I use 14 really intentionally because 14 is the age when we start to get a lot more autonomy. We don't have to go to the grocery store with mom and dad. We just have more freedom to choose who we are uniquely. Because how many of us are very different from our parents or our siblings? Yes, we're all unique down to our fingerprints. So this is when our uniqueness starts to play out. So what was 14-year-old you doing for fun? Share with your neighbor really quickly. Okay. I'm going to ask some of you to share. And there are 3 reasons that I asked this question. 1, did you feel the energy in the room really amp up even more? When you went to talking about those carefree, good old, joyful days, and not everybody had carefree, joyful, good old days. I acknowledge that that's the case. But you just felt the energy amp up. 2, what you were doing at 14 is a clue about who you really are, and I'm going to illustrate how we can use this to really get far more self-aware about the value that we do provide in our life and work as an adult. So who's willing to share with me your 14-year-old for fun story? PG-13, I think we need to maybe say that. I don't know.
The 14-year-old me, I didn't have to pay bills.
Say it again.
I missed it. He said he did not have to pay bills.
Amen. But and so while you weren't paying bills, you're carefree, living large. What were you doing for fun?
Riding bikes.
Riding bikes.
Yep.
What else? Keep going. Give me some more.
Playing it and freeze tag. There was still things to do back then. Playing basketball.
Basketball, playing outside with groups. Were you with friends?
Always.
Always with friends?
It was usually 20, maybe 30 of us. Always, at all times.
What did you love about being outside and just being carefree, playing with your friends, doing the thing?
Just the worrying, no worries. The only worry was making it home by the street light. That was your only worry at all. I mean, even if you got into a fight, you never cared about a scuffle. You never cared about falling. The only worry was the street light, and you didn't have to pay a bill.
You had one job. Just get home before the light comes on.
You got one job. Don't make me come outside and fan you. That's your job.
What did you love about basketball?
Really, it's too much to just watching the person fail, and I'm the victor. That's it, usually.
Say it again. Watching the person what?
Watching other people not win.
So you like to win. You're competitive.
I love winning. I love winning. I'm very competitive.
What's your role right now in the organization?
I'm a tech.
Okay, tell me a little bit about your day to day.
A little about the job. Just arrive at the person's house, usually at a timely manner, make sure that their job gets done and that they feel good about the person that comes to their home to make sure that their home is taken care of well for their way of living.
So you're outside, moving around, working with other people. Do you have metrics and things that you need to meet for your job?
Yes, usually I'll let our lead usually lead that way out for us during the day, because if I go flat wing, then I feel like I'm looking for a street light again. So
okay. It's true, we're all still 14-year-old. And so there's still a little bit of that competitive streak in there.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure I get the job done before the other tech.
Round of applause. These are clues about who you are and what's going to give you a thriving life. Now, if they said, hey, we're going to pay you 3 times more money, but you got to sit inside at a cubicle every day and not be with people and just, would you be happy? No. Money is not what satisfies. Is it great? Yeah. Even the Bible talks about money you don't want to love money more than you love life, but we are promised prosperity in a beautiful way. So these are clues about who we are. Who else has a 14-year-old you story that we can use to identify who you are? Way back in the back. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Audrey.
Hi, Audrey.
I'm the assistant property manager at Canal Flats.
Excellent.
I actually chose to share because I need help with mine.
Okay.
So I was in the marching band. I played the flute. I was in show choir. I was in musicals. It was pretty much music and performing.
Okay, music and performing. What did you love about it?
The thrill.
Okay, say more.
The energy, the good anxiety.
Okay.
The excitement, I guess.
The learning something, learning the instrument, because learning to play the flute is no small task. I also was in band.
Mm-hmm.
And so the difficulty of learning a task and then being able to go out and celebrate that in a performance, you loved that. You loved both. You loved the intricacy of, I got to figure out how to do this thing. I got to probably go home and practice on my own a fair amount, and then be able to stand out on the field and be like, yeah, this is fun. Does that describe it fairly well?
Yeah.
Tell me about your job now and how are there certain things in your job that are very intricate, that are difficult, that you need to learn?
Oh, yes, every day. Working with people. People are difficult.
Amen.
And learning what they need so you can get them what they need. It's a task.
Amen.
And we celebrate it when we
And then the performance piece, how does that show up in your work?
Well, I show them homes. I show prospective residents homes, and we get leases and make goals, and we do celebrate it. So,
amen. And we don't always get jobs that directly feed our souls with this, like, who we really are. sometimes we need other activities and hobbies and things in our lives. Do you still enjoy and play music as something that you do recreationally outside of work?
Not so much, but I did. I pulled my flute out a couple weeks ago, and so I think I'm gonna get back
Yes.
into it.
Do. Here's why. Through my coaching practice, I have so many people that I have back playing instruments, drums, flute, getting back out and doing the things that they love, because when you feed your soul with who you really are and what feels good to you, you show up here better. And so if you neglect all of those things until you get caught up, until you do something else, you are neglecting everyone here of the best version of you. Play that flute. She'll be playing next year for the... I'm just kidding. But wouldn't that be fun? Like, everybody get your instruments back out, and we'll have a little band next year when we come, all right? I want you to take a look at the 14-year-old you, and I want you to ask yourself, what have you left behind that's keeping you from being the best version of you? Because when we do that and we just put ourselves in that control, measure, optimize, meeting, show up, it's all a drag, it's all a grind, we have created that sense for ourselves, and we have the ability to change it into something far more joyful and hope-filled with great expectation of living a thriving life. I want you to take your hand, and I want you to picture that you have a handful of marbles. Each of them is beautiful, round, shiny. And you take that handful of marbles and you put it on the table in front of you and you pull your hand away. What happens? They all roll away, because perfection doesn't stick together very well. There's no expectation that perfection is a thriving life. It's not. It's a lonely, independent life, always trying to round out your edges. Now, if you take your hand and you picture that you've got a handful of jigsaw puzzle pieces, they're jaggedy-ass edges and the dust from the bottom of the box, and you take that handful of puzzle pieces and you put it on the table in front of you, and you look for the beautiful side, and you figure out how all of those pieces fit. There are 3 characteristics of a puzzle once it's built. It's far more beautiful, it's far stronger, and every piece counts. So show up each day with your uniqueness. Know who you are, intensely self-aware, so that you can be the best version of yourself when you're here. Now I'm going to show you 2 tools to help you have a thriving life before I leave today. They are a daily stillness practice and a VRI reflection practice. But first, I'm going to show you in a very rudimentary way how your nervous system works, so you know why these practices matter to thriving. It's not random thoughts by Rebecca. It's the neuroscience of what your nervous system needs. Your nervous system has 3 levels. At the top level is connection. It's joy, it's happiness, it's learning, it's creative. It's that, ooh, this feels good place. In the middle is activation. When something's happening and you need to respond to it, it could be that tiger in the room situation, or it could be a new deadline or a new boss. The kids are sick, I got to figure out how to do that. Like being activated all the time. That can be negative and positive. Sometimes it's inspired motivation, and sometimes it's, oh crap, now what? But activation is when we're in that fight-flight mode of our nervous system, always responding to things. And then there's shutdown. And shutdown can either be like, I've just had it and I'm collapsing into burnout. The good part of shutdown is when you do it for yourself intentionally, what's called safely still. As a human, we need to connect with all 3 parts of our nervous system. And what's happened in the striving way of life is that we've become stuck in the activation mode, where we're constantly responding, trying to control every little thing in our lives. And when we stay stuck in that stressed out activation portion of our lives, we starve out the connection piece, because our brain thinks, oh, we're surviving. I got to shut down some of the mechanisms in order to survive. And so if you're really stressed out and somebody sits down and says, hey, I need you to help me solve this problem, and needs creativity, You can't access creativity when you're in stressed out activation. It's not available to you. You can fake it and probably have a mediocre result, but you're not going to have your most creative. When you're really stressed out and you go home and one of your loved ones goes, hey, can we talk? You think, oh, crap. Because you really don't want to connect. You don't have access to that empathy and vulnerability portion of your brain because you're so freaked out about what's happened today. And so we can either just subconsciously let things play out and end up in that place of burnout where eventually we just have to shut down, or we can put ourselves in this place of safely still with a daily stillness practice. And what that looks like is 10 to 30 minutes every single day for you to speak to you, for you to be still, to call upon that first responder voice that says, I'm okay. What do I need? The daily stillness practice, first thing in the morning, is ideal because you're not getting less stress in your job. There's always growth opportunities on the other side of that sea of uncertainty. So if you want to grow, we're not going to wait until we're not stressed out. We're going to give ourselves this daily stillness practice. So it's much like a snow globe. You know, if you took a snow globe and you shook it up, all that glittery goodness inside that's spinning around, that's our lives. There's good stuff happening, spinning all the time. But if we don't set that snow globe down and let all of that settle, we can't see what's inside, and what's inside can't see out. So we need that daily practice to just be, so we can see ourselves more clearly, decide the life that we want, and show up here at work as a better version of ourselves. Because when we show up with that frenetic, stressed out energy, it's contagious. And you're stressing other people out, so stop it. We need daily stillness. 10 to 30 minutes. It can be just breathe. Just go outside and just breathe. Go out in nature. Journal. Gratitude has the most impact on our physiology of anything that we can do. But it's not just about a gratitude list and checking it off. It's actually feeling the sense of gratitude that we have for things. In a particularly difficult time in my life, I have 2 gratitude journal entries that I'll never forget, where there's always something to be grateful for. My life was the pits at this time. And one of my gratitude journal entries says, I'm really glad the dog threw up on the hardwood instead of the carpet. It was way easier to clean up. Woo! Win! It's all I had that day. But when you write something down that you're grateful for, what you feed grows. And all of a sudden, more things start to come that you can be grateful for. Another entry says, I really like this pen. And that's all I had that day. But it was enough to get me to the next day. So the first practice that I want you to consider is a daily stillness practice. I have a group on that is doing this as a challenge for October. I have a newsletter that I put out a couple times a month. And I have invited people into a daily stillness practice. And I said, if we do this for October, every day for 10 to 30 minutes, by November, you'll have a ton to be grateful for. And by December, you might actually enjoy the holidays. Wouldn't that be fun? So if you're in, I'd love for you to join in this month-long daily stillness practice. The second practice that I have for you, these are 2 models that I created that are in my book called Write Your Own Story. And it depicts the fact that our companies and us as individuals want the same thing. And it showed up here in your comments today. What we all want is to be valuable, relevant, and make an impact. It's what I call VRI. And so every week, what I'd like you to do is reflect on the value that you bring to work, how it's relevant, human to human, as well as the bottom line, because we still are here to make money, y'all. And what's the impact that it's having? And when you reflect on this every single week, you start to build that confidence of, I do matter. I am making a difference. Don't leave it to chance. Don't leave it for somebody else to tell you about you. Sit down each week and ask yourself, how am I relevant in making an impact here? Because your value is about who you are, not your accomplishments. I have a box full of glass awards stuck under my stairs that don't keep me warm at night. They're evidence that I had done great things in my job, but my value I can take anywhere. I can take to any department that I work in, anything that I want to do. Your value is who you are. It's your story. And then look at your plans for the next week and say, how am I going to show up and be valuable, relevant, and make an impact? So those are the two practices. Daily stillness, and to set each week and just really reflect on your value, relevance, and impact. Sound like a fair thing to expect for you to make sure that you're living a thriving life and not in striving? Here's why most of you won't do it. It's too easy. It's too simple. It's free. Because of the patterns that we've been given, we have learned to believe it's got to be difficult to be worthy. No pain, no gain. And because those two things are free and simple and easily accessible to you, you'll dismiss it. A few of you, just like the study on Change or Die, will choose it. And for those that do choose it, don't be judgy to the others that aren't doing it. Don't show up at the meeting going, doing your daily stillness practice? I am. You know what I call that? That's the wet dog syndrome. What do we know about wet dogs? They smell horrible and they shake all over everybody. Don't show up with all your, look at my daily stillness practice. Don't do that. Just do it and let the impact of it show up for you in a way that inspires others to want to do it too. Because when we start to control, measure, and optimize and mandate things in a way that makes people feel like, crap. Same thing about what's been happening in the history of work. I'm going to go back to our flip chart here. I took us to 2019 when the World Health Organization announced burnout. Well, before we could even address that organizationally, we ended up 2020 with quarantine. No connection, none of our human needs really being met, shut down. And we had this fight, flight, freeze response to this, a human response. The first response was in 2021, which was the flight response. Those that had the means to do it said, I'm out. And we had the Great Resignation, and millions of people had left the workforce, largely women. The next response was the freeze response, quiet quitting. I don't have the means to quit, but I'm not going to give you any more than I have to. And then the rest of the people were stuck doing the work of everybody else, and everybody just started to kind of close in. We're just on the other side of that here at 2023. And the big question is, I don't have to go into the office, or I don't have to come in because I can do my work from home. We've proven that. But if we don't come into the office, eyeball to eyeball, heartbeat to heartbeat, once in a while, and look at the people that we serve, and look at how we work together and build trust and show each other that we care about the value, relevance, and impact that you're making in the world, you're not going to be able to fuel the kind of growth that you want for this organization. Because companies are made up of humans. And if we're meeting our human needs, then we can help grow the company and meet the company's needs. The other reason that you may not choose to do these practices is because we're addicted to being busy. And stillness feels like detox. I interviewed a doctor on my podcast. And she said, we're all addicted to something. She was a general practitioner, but she also volunteered in the addiction space. And she said, if it's not drugs, alcohol, sex, or shopping, it's busy. And so I promise you that that first time that you practice daily stillness, 10 minutes will feel like 4 days. And you will twitch, and you will say, this is hard, and you'll likely give up. I'm begging you not to. Because as somebody that has done this practice religiously for 7 years, it has a significant impact on your life that nobody else has to give you and you don't have to buy. It's just you choosing it for you. And so as I said when I started today, what I hope to do is inspire you to care about you. And I hope that is true, that I have done that today. But I also want to remind you that on this timeline, we've been striving since the 1900s. Here we are today in 2023. We got a whole lot of life left in all of us. And so I want to encourage us to move out of the industrial age model of work into what I call the age of humanity, where you know yourself and your unique purpose, who you are, the value that you provide, and you show up to serve to each other and your clients as a community. Work, rest, serve. Because if even a few of you decide to do that and make that change, the ripple effect that will happen in the way that you parent, in the way that you lead, in the way that you serve your customers, people will start to take notice. And that's the way that we drive change in the world. We will have the age of humanity available to us, which is what we all desperately want for ourselves and others. And I believe that here in this organization, that BAM is doing amazing things, that not only do they care about you and the work that you do, but they want you to have a prosperous life and for you to decide what that is for you. Thank you for allowing me to be with you today. I think you're an amazing group of people. One of the practices that I teach is to receive compliments, because too often we deflect those. But I care deeply about this work, and that means the world to me, so I receive it. Thank you.